Again. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to day one of Tech for Newbies. So we're going to be starting this session with front-end development. If you got my email, hi, if you got our email. My name is Hanifa. I'm the programs coordinator and community manager at Ingressive for Good. And Ingressive for Good is a non-for-profit organization that our mission is to train 1 million African youths in the next 5 years and to place 5,000 people in jobs. So one of those ways that we do this is by having conversations like this, having webinars to bring in newbies, novices, for those that you have no idea on how to start a career in the tech space. So this is it. This is just going to be 30 very short 30 minutes having a conversation with experts in the space who have had over like 3, 4, 5 years experiences in the tech space. And we're going to be, they're going to be giving us a very straight roadmap on how to start and how to go from a newbie to, starting a career. And without further ado, I'm going to be checking on our speaker. Let's listen to a little bit of music. By the way, we have ambassadors. And ambassadors are those who have tech communities, who are building tech communities in different institutions. If you're an ambassador, say hi in the chat box, let's get to know you. And if you're, yes, one more thing, this is very important. So we have a lot of applications coming from all over Nigeria, all over the country, all over Africa, basically. So kindly, please go into the chat box, introduce yourself, just say your name and where you're joining us from. So let us know your name and where you're joining us from. I'm Hanifa and I'm joining from Lagos, Nigeria. Yeah, that was expected, I know. So we're going to be listening to a playlist collated by the ambassadors at Ingressive for Good, and I'm going to be introducing our next speaker, our first speaker. We're going to be talking about front end. So okay, once again, welcome. If you're just joining us, let us know where you're introduce yourself in the comment section. Let us know where you're joining us from. So excited to meet you guys. Okay, so I'm going, oh my God. Yes, I said it. We have a lot of people joining us from all over Nigeria, all over Africa, and I'm so excited. We have from Kwara, we have Monica from Kenya. Hi, Monica. We have Jessica from Benin, Nigeria. We have Salami from Lagos. We have Balkis from Lagos. We have Abdurrahim from Nigeria as well. We have Nicole from Zimbabwe. Hi. Tosin from Lagos. Hi. Ikechukwu from Osuka, Nigeria. Thank you guys so much for joining. And yes, we have our speaker here. Hi, Zarius. I'm sorry, Arius.
Hello, yeah. I mean, whatever. How are you? It's been a while.
I know. It has. It's nice seeing your face.
Nice seeing you too. So today I'm here to talk about
front end,
introducing yourself to front end and all that, right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. And just full disclosure, we were not able to get through to the first original speaker, so sorry for the
backup plan.
Yes. That kind, but we know you are an expert in this space, and we know you're going to put justice into it. So yeah, let's just get started, and I'm going to be launching a poll now. I want everybody joining us to kind of help respond to those questions. that would kind of feed into, the data and how we are able to put justice into it. So Zarius, hello, thank you for joining again. And we're just going
Thank
to
you.
start from, what the heck is front end?
So front end, so front end is just think of it as whatsoever you can look at, and whatsoever I'm trying to look for a scenario where it fits well. It's like a product where you look at or how the product looks like. So that's what front end is. It doesn't necessarily apply to only coding or development. Does that make sense? It's just like whatsoever or the appearance of how your product looks like is front end.
So when you
Initially, at the
say,
time,
sorry, when you say products, like that's like say web apps or like
web
applications.
apps or mobile apps,
Mm,
yeah,
okay.
that's what it basically means. And it's all applied to, graphic designs and all that. At the time when I was coding, because I started coding, I think around 11 years ago. Do you get? So we are often the same people with, can you hear me?
Yes,
Because
go ahead.
I'm getting network error here. We're often the same people as UI UX designers. Do you get what I mean?
Mm,
So at that time, especially in Nigeria, there was no difference between front end and UI UX designer. But now with it being niched down, I feel like we have our job is being simplified. If that makes sense. Do you get what I mean? So it's like if you are a UI UX designer, you're not the same thing as front end designer. So front end designer or developer, let me say that. So the UI designer will help you in designing what the product will look like. Then your job is just to code how it will look like and feel. So
okay, so for front-end development, right? So
yeah,
we've talked about coding and we've mentioned a little bit of coding in there. And I know a lot of
yeah.
people are kind of always scared about coding. So to simply build like a very super simple website, what is like the top tools or top coding platforms or ways to kind of start to build to call yourself a front-end developer? What do
Okay,
you
so
yeah.
you basically need three programming languages, but some people debate that it's not a programming language. I disagree. I feel like programming languages are sets of instructions, right, that you give to the computer in order to be able to, I don't know, give out an information or display an information, right? So for me, I feel like you need HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Although there are all these new languages like Bootstrap, Vue, and all that, but you need the basics, right? And the basics are, and I feel like not even only front end, even if you're doing back end, you need some knowledge of HTML in a way. So in a sense that people are not calling it, that's the backend engineers are not calling it a programming language. I don't know what they mean by that, but that's just a basic tool. Yeah, those
All
three
right.
basic tools.
Yeah, thank you. So it's interesting that you mentioned that, they're like kind of the basic tools. So it's just like building a house or kind of building a framework. And then HTML is, that tool that you need to set up the infrastructure, right? To set up the
Yeah,
structural framing. And then
yeah.
CSS is to kind of put the finishing touches. And then JavaScript, could you like say, talk a little bit about JavaScript and why JavaScript is important for front-end development?
So I mean, it's JavaScript your is like okay, you for example, you look physically appealing, which is the CSS, your physical appearance and all that. But the motion you're making and the way you're talking is the JavaScript, right? It's what runs the website. It's what gives feeling of a website to the website. Without JavaScript, it's like you're having a static. I don't know if can I simplify static?
Yeah.
It's like you're having a static website where it has no function, but with the JavaScript, it helps with the animation and how the website feels. But the
That's great.
HTML is just like the skeleton, like the structure of the website. The CSS is just to beautify the website. And then the JavaScript is to give animation and feeling to the website.
Awesome.
Or even with, like if you're building React to, it's like to an app. So I don't know. Depends on what you're working on. But it's just all these three tools are basically super, super helpful. And for me, when I like programming language, is just the same language from my own understanding. As soon as you can be able to understand one of those programming language, you can understand every other one. So that's
Yeah.
just the
I
basic thing.
mean, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I think when I started the whole coming into the whole tech space,
Yeah.
there's this thing that they usually say that so far you're able to write hello world with HTML. I mean, you're already automatically a programmer. So like super
Yeah.
easy, guys.
So I feel like, from my own understanding, to be honest, there are other programming languages that are more difficult than others. That is true. But once you understand the concept of one of them, right, it would be a lot more easier for you to be able to transition from another place to another place. Do you get what I mean? So
Yeah,
it's just basic understanding of what works. I mean, and there is Google. Up to now, I still use Google to, fill in some space on, on some things I forgot about. And then you search the syntax and you can be able to fill in the space. So I don't think anyone should be afraid of, getting into programming per se, because now I think is the most, there are, okay, what about the view I talked about? View have dynamic objects that, you can be able to use to simplify other things that you want to do. Do you get what I'm saying? Before, like, if you want to pick color, you have to go and use the hex color of that color. But now you can quickly type in blue or white or whatever, and you feel that same color for you. Whereas before, it's like you have to put hash FFF or hash 000 to get your black color. But now you can just say, hey, the syntax, you open your bracket and then put the color blue, and it will just use that color for you. So I feel like it's a little bit more easier now to be able to do a lot of things. If
as
it
a
was
content
before, if it was like
developer.
3 years ago, I'd be like, oh yeah, I think you should be scared of programming. But now it's just like the more dedication, the more practice you put in it, the better you get. Do you get what I mean? So that's my own take on it.
Great, thank you. So I also want to kind of emphasize on most of the times one of like the top um careers in terms of tech as a whole is like front end because
Yeah.
there are a lot of you see you go to Google Chrome, the website that you see on google.com, even though google.com was built on HTML and CSS and JavaScript and all that. So basically almost every like website, every web applications are built on these common basic tools. So I
Yeah.
also now kind of want to go into what are the required skills for a front-end developer. What do you need? What are like the basic required skills? I know we already mentioned
It's
HTML
just,
and CSS, but like what are the
yeah.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are the skills. Those are the skills you need. Like I said, if it was before, I would say, hey, you need a little bit of understanding of design, but now you don't. If if you want to be a good front-end developer, all you need is just practice. If you understand, I mean, you're saying almost all, every website that is living in existence now have a little bit of CSS, JavaScript, or JavaScript or HTML in it.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot escape that if you're developing for web, right? So it's just like, if you want to practice, just go on Dribble, get samples of designs that UI designers have already put on there. Then you try to code it. The more you practice, the more you get better. And I feel like once you understand the basics of header, body, meta, and all that, you understand the basics of CSS, how to change your border radius and all that. You understand how to apply strokes. You don't need much. You can be able to build anything from there. And that's why programming has unlimited barriers. And I was in the talks last week or day before yesterday, and we were talking about Web3 and how we can migrate ourselves to Web3. And to me, I feel like that is exploring us to the future. And when you get to the stage of Web3 and you understand the concept of Web2 and how to build for Web2, because some people will be like, oh, I'm not even good at Web2 and they're trying to introduce Web3. What are they saying?
Yeah.
This Web3 we're talking about is not happening tomorrow, right? And I feel like we are the ones that will build that future. So if you're trying to build now, don't think about, hey, there's this new, because a lot of people, what I understand about their programming language career is they try to jump on many different things based on their friends' recommendation or based on the thoughts that, hey, these are the new things that is happening. Now, I feel like once you master down those three basics ones and you're very good at it, it should then be easier for you. So if you go to an industry and they say, hey, we're using Bootstrap here, then you'll be like, oh, Bootstrap, right? Just go check the documentation. They would relate that documentation to the basic HTML and CSS you learned. So that's just my own perspective on everything.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm just going to kind of quickly go through our poll just to see the number of participants and the responses that we're getting. So the question was if you have any idea what front-end development is, and we have 38% responding yes, 38% responding no, 11% saying not sure, and 13% saying a little bit. So that means a lot of what we are going to be seeing is going to be resonating with you guys. So if you have any questions, please list them out in the comment section. We might not be able to go through all of them because, we have, like I said, 30 minutes for each section just to ensure that you understand what the basic required skills are for starting a career in all these different tech spaces. So to move on, so the next question is, what are the job titles? So I know that there are a lot of confusion out there. What do you call a front-end developer or an engineer or an application JavaScript developer? Like, what are these titles or possible titles that relate with front-end development?
Like you just said, some people call them front-end engineer, but I disagree. I feel like an engineer is a person that solves a problem. Do you get what I mean? And although you're solving a problem by designing how those products look, or it's what you design that helps people. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say. Like the way what you design, I want to look for a way that I'm going to phrase it that is going to make all of us front-end developers happy with. It's just like we're designing things to make people's life easier, right? If you think about it, without google.com, people will still be able to search, right? Do you get what I mean? But the interface of that google.com makes it more easier for you to be able to search. And I feel like that's the work of a front-end engineer or developer, I don't know, whatever. Awesome. But at the same time too, there's another person on the other side, which is the UI UX, two people, or would I say bunch of people, which are the UI UX designers who help design how that app will look and feel. So what you're just doing is you're putting in place what the people who have researched, which is the UX designers who have researched on how the app will look and make it more easier for people. You're just putting it together. Do you get what I mean? And that's why I disagree about it being a software engineer, front-end engineer. But at the same time, call me and I'm gonna happily take that.
Yeah, I mean, we have to kind of like go with what's trending, right? So we have like front-end developers, front-end engineers, testing, front-end testing, mobile engineers. I think those are kind of like the fields that you can work in when you have that particular skills. And it's also interesting that you also mentioned the different team members that you get to work with. You get to work with a product lead, you get to work with a UI UX designer, just like you mentioned. You get to work with a back-end developer. So those are kind of like the different skills that,
work with alongside your front end,
So let's go into a little bit about compensation. So just 1 minute here. What was like the salary range of a front-end developer?
Yeah, so are you talking about in Nigeria or in
okay, so I think we can go both ways. So let's do international and then Africa/Nigeria.
So I think I was in a room where we were discussing about, what is the salary, what are you supposed to be paid? Are we being underpaid in Nigeria for our skills, or what are we hoping to be paid? And then, there's someone that called that said that, I wouldn't say someone, I think a lot of people kept mentioning the fact that I think it was something alongside what you should be paid what you're worth, right? So my own problem with that is I asked the question, do you think we should be asking ourselves, am I being paid what I'm worth? Or we should be asking ourselves, do you even know what you're worth?
Mm.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mm.
Because if everyone is to be asked, if I'm to ask you now, do you think you're worth 10 million per month? You say yes. But at the same time, can an employer pay you 10 million per month? Possibly no.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
get what I mean?
Yeah.
So based on, compensation and all, how are we supposed to be paid? It is dependent on the company you're working with.
Mm-hmm.
And like we said, this is a beginner session. So if you're working with a company at first, like, you shouldn't expect more from it. Not that I'm saying that you should be underpaid, but you shouldn't think of it in a Google. The company can, I don't think there's any other company that can compare themselves to how Google pays their employee.
Mm.
You understand? Because they simply can't afford that.
Mm.
And then I don't want people to be using that, what
As
they see online.
mm.
Yeah. And then, going to say, hey, probably applying to a company and they're telling them we're going to be paying you this. And they're like, I think that's too small for me. I feel like with Nigeria, if you're a front-end developer, you should be paid nothing less than 150K.
Mm-hmm.
Start.
That's
That
right.
is if you're a beginner.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're working remotely, nothing less than 1.5 per month. I mean, I'm talking about US, please. And
Yeah.
UK too, that's just what they simply pay their, because there are junior front-end developers and senior front-end developers. So I think we're talking about junior here, right? So you shouldn't be paid you shouldn't be paid nothing less than that. But
Yeah.
if you're residing or you're staying in that country, you shouldn't be paid nothing less than around $3,000 per month, depending on where you work for. But some companies happily pay more than that. I mean, there's a friend of mine who works in two companies and collects around $20,000 per month.
Mm.
You get what I mean? Working alongside two companies. So I mean, it's just based on where you work for and all that, or where you work at.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So I think finally we are going to go into or maybe semi-finally, tell us a little bit about your own personal experience as a front-end developer, in terms of how you started and where you are at now.
Okay, so I started with this is crazy. Like I said, I have like I started coding around like 11 years ago or more. I can't even remember. So the thing with me is that I wanted to solve a problem, right? And I feel like it wasn't, I never thought about, hey, how much are they going to pay me?
Mhm.
It's always all about, hey, what's like my own experience? Like, what problem am I to solve? Do you get what I mean? Like, basically, and then the problem I wanted to solve was the fact that I just want to have a community. I want to have people I would say, hey, or I just wanted to build an app that looks like Facebook,
Mhm.
and my people use this. I feel I feel like it was so cool for you to be able to have a product that anyone, you can be able to connect with your old friends, you can be able to connect with all other, and I was like, I don't know. And then, I also have this ego thing where I don't feel people are better than me,
Mhm.
even though they are at that time, right?
Yeah.
So a friend of mine was now like, Mark Zuckerberg is the person who built Facebook. He's so cool. He's the best, whatever, whatever. And I'm like, he's not that special.
Right. I mean, we can do this as well.
Yeah,
Go.
if I can do this, oh my god, I sound funny saying all this now. So if I can do this as well, like, shouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah.
So when I just started learning HTML, CSS, self-taught, I went to cafes. At that time, there was no much data. So I used to I used to sleep at cafes, to be honest. So, and then, do it over and over again. Then I built a community. And then I got around 1,000 users at that time of our local people. called it M-Share. So at that time, and then, the era of that, I didn't know how to monetize it. I didn't know how to scale it. I was just losing money for, hosting, which was my brother's money. I really appreciate that guy to now. He helped my life so much because he believed in me.
Yeah.
So I used his money to host it. And then when he started complaining that they were removing money from his credit card, so I just had to stop that. And that was just my whole thing with, programming. Because at that time I was doing full stack. It wasn't only front end, it was front end and back end at the same time. Do you get? So I get to the point where I stopped all that. Then I got sick and they wanted to do surgery for me. And then we didn't have a doctor we didn't have a surgeon that could be able to help me. And they were saying, at that time I was saying in Jos, and they said they would have to transfer me to Gombe. And then that doctor said that if we were to come to Gombe, it's a private hospital, we'll have to pay more to be able to, then he was like, we shouldn't worry, even with the strike, because they were striking the hospital. He's going to come back to Jos and do that surgery for me under the hospital. Yeah, and that really inspired me, and that really motivated me to say, hey, if there are this kind of people, why can't I just build a platform where we can find doctors and all that? It got me into exploring more into programming and all that. And it has always just been an aspect that I want to solve a problem. And that's why I was in it. But in the process of solving a problem, I just got jobs and got paid for it. So now, like, what I'm doing more is just more of like product design. And with product design, you need front-end design too. So I'm working with some companies in the UK. And then, I'm just here just trying to, I don't know, solve a problem and then be paid for it.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's how I feel. And I feel like if you're thinking like that, it will be a little bit more easier for you to be able to not feel that like it's stressful. Because there was a day I had a bug and I couldn't fix it for like 3 days, and I kept going on it, and it's frustrating. So if you're looking at the aspect of money, you'll be like,
are they paying you well?
Am I going to? Yeah. So
yeah, absolutely.
like if you just look at the aspect, the problem solving aspect, and then and now I'm even more like, I have like a company I started called Digital Grace Technologies, where we build products for people, and then that's just basically it. Like,
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It was really inspiring hearing your own personal story. I mean,
Thank you.
I hope what if I've taken anything away from this, right, is that look to solve a problem, look for challenges around you, and solve it with tech. It doesn't matter if it's front end. I mean, we are going to be talking about, who knows what we're going to be talking about next. But yeah, we have our next speaker that has joined us. I'm so glad. And like I said, this is going to be a very short 30 minutes talking to you about roadmaps, how exactly to start in tech. And I do have a reward for our audience. So there are 3 questions here that I want you, the first person to give me the full meaning of these 3 acronyms will get a reward. So the first one is www. What is the full meaning of www? What is the full meaning of URL? And what is the full meaning of HTML? All 3 answers, I want you to give it to me in the chat box. So we ran a poll at the beginning of the session, and the question was, do you have an idea what front-end development is? And we have 43% saying yes, we have 36% saying no, 7% said not sure, and 14% said a little bit. So if this session answered a lot of your questions, let me know in the chat box. And like I said, this video is going to be uploaded on YouTube, so you can rewatch it. And there's going to be a lot of resources that I myself, the team at Ingressive for Good, and our guest speaker, we're going to work together to kind of create that resources and roadmap for you to be able to have answers to those questions. And I know Nicole asked a question in the chat box here. As a front-end developer, would you need to also learn backend skills, or would you have to work with a team that includes developers for the backend? So I think we did respond to this when we were talking. So we have full stack developers that do both front end and back end, and then we have just pure front end developers that choose to focus on front end development and then work with a team that has a back end developer in the team. So I hope that answers your question. And my team member Kamal will be picking the winner, and we're going to reach out to you. So like I said, the first person to respond and give us the answers to those 3 questions. So yeah, we're moving on to the second. And okay, before we move on, thank you so much, Arias. I really, really appreciate the impromptu. You really came through for us, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
So,
Do have a great day. Yeah.
you too. Have a nice day. So without further ado, we're going to be moving on to the next session.